That's it, man. Game over, man. It's game over.
No tears, please. It's a waste of good suffering.
Fairly alarmed here.
Welcome to MOTN Reviews, that is Masters of the Nerdiverse Reviews, where we review some of these Nerdiverse's shiniest cinematic supernovas and some that are not so brightly lit. You can find this tower of a podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, Spreaker, SoundCloud, YouTube, iHeartRadio, Google Play, and Spotify. I'm, of course, your host, Mike G., and I'm happy to welcome back to the show the King of Myth's own Brant. How's it going, man?
Hi, it's good to be here.
Sweet. It's always good to have you, my good sir, for our I would say, our unorthodox, I would say unnatural Christmas episode, kind of in a weird way. The way this episode came about is that we actually did a poll on our Twitter, which is at mnerdiverse, where we asked you, the listener, to vote on their favorite unconventional Christmas movie. And among some of the films were Gremlins, Lethal Weapon, Batman Returns, and of course, as you saw in the title, the original Die Hard, starring Bruce Willis and Alan Rickman. And this actually won very resoundingly. And I was quite surprised, given, the other films that are on the list. So I was just wondering, Brant, what's your history with this movie?
Well, my dad is a super big Bruce Willis fan, and I've pretty much seen every single one of Bruce Willis's old movies. I've seen the ones that people have not heard of, like Hudson Hawk, for instance, or forgotten ones like Unbreakable or The Last Boy Scout.
I love The Last Boy Scout. Yeah, man. Yeah, with Damon Wayans.
It's been a good decade since I've seen that movie. I need to go watch that again.
Yeah, man. I would not kick that movie out of bed. I love me some The Last Boy Scout. I actually have it DVR'd, so I watch it quite often. Actually, it's good stuff.
I actually voted in the poll on the thing for the movie. I voted for Batman Returns.
You know what's funny? I voted for Gremlins because, like this movie, I haven't seen the original Gremlins in so many years. Like, I don't even remember it. I was a child when I saw it.
I remember it vaguely. It's been a good, decade since I've seen the original Gremlins.
It's funny because with this movie, for me, like I just aforementioned, this movie wasn't really in heavy rotation in my family. We used to watch a lot of Die Hard with a Vengeance with Jeremy Irons and Samuel Jackson. That was the one that was my Die Hard movie. It wasn't 2 or any of the sequels after With a Vengeance. It was always With a Vengeance. And this movie always kind of kept a part of my brain where I lumped it in with Lethal Weapon, and I lumped it in with films like Hudson Hawk and just those and Remo Williams, those weird 90s action film classics, but I just didn't have any real memory of this movie until I watched it recently. And what would you say have you watched it again recently, Brent?
Yeah, I watched it about a week ago.
What was your general consensus after watching it for a while?
Again, last time I saw this movie again was probably somewhere around maybe 11 years, somewhere around there. And then watching it, I'm like, oh wow, this thing is dated. Like the cassette player, the limousine, just a lot of things. And one thing that really got my attention was some of the cinematography techniques. And the one that Ron specifically mentioned that really made me go, wow, you can tell this is an older movie or not very well filmed, is because when the wife is introduced and you have the camera behind the Japanese businessman, and then it zooms over his shoulder into the back of her head, and you don't see her face until she turns and goes down the hallway.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. It's it gave her a little bit of mystery, didn't it? It's like, oh, who's his wife? Because I noticed that in that scene, it did linger on the back of her head for quite some time, like it was going to be some giant reveal.
It was also a very slow zoom over the Japanese man's shoulder too. So like it sat there, he talked for like I think about 10, 12 seconds before it started the zoom.
Right, right. And I didn't remember if she was like a famous actress, because in the other films you don't really see her a lot. If I don't remember, I think you see her in the second
She's
one,
gone after 2. She doesn't reappear,
right?
I think, after 2.
Yeah, and I just was like, no, it's the actress herself. Her name escapes me, but I was like, yeah, I didn't believe she was like a famous actress or anything. So her origin and like their relationship in this movie is quite interesting, I think. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
And then one thing that did catch me, and we can kind of go into the movie now, is that this is indeed one of the best unconventional Christmas movies of all time. And almost after watching it very recently, everything about this film felt unconventional. You have an unconventional hero in John McClane in a time where everyone was muscle bound with one-liners and were untouchable. John McClane was probably one of the most vulnerable heroes I can remember in quite some time, where he's never really has the upper hand. You know what I mean? It's kind of interesting how they play that. And, you know?
Yeah, the thing with John McClane is he is a cop, so you know he has some kind of training. He has field experience. He's not a rookie by any means. So
Right.
he is not like a traditional underdog. So I don't know if we go with the underdog story of this, because he's obviously a professional in some kind, and he has some form of experience dealing with villains. Maybe not to the degree that he gets himself into in the first movie, because these people are international terrorists and they're packing some mighty heat. Especially the scene where the SWAT team comes in, they're like, oh yeah, bring in the car. They bring in this giant armored carrying thing and this pull out missile launchers and they missile it.
Right. And that's kind of where my head was going, was that, yes, John McClane he is super cop. You know, he's still quite, I would say, well-versed in handling the situation, but he's outnumbered, he's outgunned, and the actual villains of the film aren't necessarily brain dead. You know, they have a plan. And, you know, as John mentioned in the film, he was indeed the fly in the ointment. You know, he just seems to be this kind of stealthy, just very different than, let's say, an Arnold Schwarzenegger in Commando, where he just walks dead center down the city, blasting people away, you know, or Rambo, where he's just, there's just no way he could possibly lose. Like John McClane, it has mostly victories, but he does have some losses in this film where, you know, he just couldn't do enough because of the situation.
Yeah, like the dude getting shot by Hans.
Right, exactly. The businessman,
Mm-hmm.
the fast talker. He just, nothing he could have done in that situation, and it was a failure. You know, it was a negotiation failure because the guy wasn't listening. But that the film sets it up that way to where you kind of feel bad more for John than the guy who just got blown away. You know,
and he gets heavily injured throughout the movie. I mean, he gets glass in his feet. He gets all banged up.
He gets shot a couple of times. They kind of glance over it, but the second in command is, I remember him from the movie The Money Pit with Tom Hanks, where he plays like Tom Hanks's wife's love interest in a weird way. So when I saw that guy, made me immediately think of The Money Pit. But yeah, that guy clips him a couple times in the shoulder, you know, during one of their final battles. And yeah, John McClane, he's the beat up, barely making it. He's limping by the end of the film because, like you said, I forgot how visceral that moment was, where you can actually see his feet, him pulling out the shards of glass in his toes. It's like really good, nice good body horror. You know, something unexpected. And one thing that I found funny about this movie was, going back to the unconventional Christmas of it, is that he befriends the limo driver, you know, who happens to save the day in his own little weird way.
The comic relief.
The comic relief, right? and he puts on Christmas Time by Run DMC, and John McClane's like, can you put on Christmas music? And he's like, this is Christmas music. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's that little twist, you know, and that's what I think what makes this movie so good. And in a weird way, timeless. You know, there are things that really date it.
times it. The cassette really dates it.
Oh, yeah, when he was listing off this stuff, he was like, man, we got VCRs, we got TVs, we got VHS.
The first 5 minutes of this movie just dates it so bad.
Yeah, that is rough now that I think about it. But after that, it just becomes, once you're locked in, you know, into Nakatomi Plaza, then the movie really starts to take off.
It becomes basically another timeless
cat and mouse
80s
game.
action movie. Like, it just falls into that category. There's explosions, there's some really good gunfights, you have a very likable protagonist, and then you get relief periods. You'll get some really charged scene, and then it'll flick over to the limousine dude, and like you'll look in the rear view mirror and look at the teddy bears, like, what you looking at?
Exactly. And then you have really poignant moments, like the moment where John McClane's talking to his buddy, I called him Carl Winslow from Family Matters, who's the outside cop, where he talks about why he's a desk jockey now, like his story, like his quick origin. You have little quiet moments like that where, like you were mentioning, Brent, there are breaks in the action that you need so that it adds more weight when something else crazy happens. You know what I mean?
It's a palate cleanser.
Exactly. Absolutely. There are a lot of, and I didn't really expect that in a film like this, where they had these quiet moments where, you know, smoke them if you got them, right? And, you know, John McClane just lights one up. He takes the cigarettes off the dead. They're not terrorists, because they say that a lot in this movie. Like, no, we've never said we were terrorists. They're more just like really capable thieves.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to really put a label on them. Like, you can call them international terrorists. They are to a degree, but I think he calls themselves professional thieves, I believe, is what Alan Rickman's character like coins themselves.
Absolutely. Let's talk about Alan Rickman's character, Hans Gruber, which kind of pulls back to what I know, which is Die Hard with a Vengeance, where also in that film they were seen as terrorists. But by the end of the story, you just realize that they're just professional international thieves, you know, when it boils down to it, what their end goal was. And just like with Hans Gruber in this film, you're kind of left like wondering. It kind of left you wondering, like, why are they doing this? And then it kind of boils down to money, of course, right? It always boils down to money.
Well, you're kind of given the initial thing at the beginning is about the safe, but you have no idea what's in there. I don't think they ever really specify what's in the safe until near the end.
It was at the very end where it's like, yeah, we're in it for $600 million in like bearer bonds or something like that. And this is like one of the most high-tech safes of all time in the 90s. So they have to go through this giant elaborate plan where they're actually counting on the canned responses of the LAPD and the FBI, for that matter, who, it's kind of like, you know how people say either you're too dumb or you don't care. You know, it's one or the other, that kind of apathy. Whereas the the LAPD and the FBI are like, either they're too stupid to handle the situation, or they're too apathetic to actually help in the situation. It's kind of like the cops are just kind of, other than Carl Winslow, the actual police chief just doesn't listen. Of course, he's doing his by the numbers thing, which exacerbates the situation. And then you have the FBI, who's willing to take 25 to 30% casualty counts to get the job done. And it's just like, wow, this is the representation of like how alone John really is during this entire ordeal.
But this also really brings out something. I love the parallel between dumb cop and smart villain, because everyone like that's in the main ring, like the main important people of the bad guy side, know what's going on. They have that like really smart lookout dude who's getting into the safe and keeping a lookout on all the cops, and he's telling them like what formations they're doing and
Mm-hmm.
where they need to do and how to take care of them. And then you have Hans, who's like done his research and knows every kind of response is going to happen, and they planned those responses into their overall plan. And like the dude's like, we're going to need a miracle to get in this safe. He's like, oh, don't worry, it's going to work.
Don't worry about it. If I know them like they're meant to be, then it's all going to work out. And it did. Their plan would have absolutely worked if it wasn't for John McClane. You know, and I think that's kind of the cool part about this movie is that it reminds me more of like in the video game terms. It's not a first person shooter. It's more of like it's almost like a Splinter Cell kind of survival. You know what I mean? Like survival stealth game where he's just kind of having to just stay right off the radar of his combatants, and he's taking notes. There's a scene where he's listening in on their walkie-talkies. You see him writing names and like, you know, getting a count of how many bodies, you know, how many warm bodies are like left that he has to take down. That's super smart. And like at that time, we didn't see heroes doing that. They didn't care, you know. But no, John was, you know, pretty sharp, light on his feet. You know what I mean?
Yeah, there was an interesting point where they made John kind of smart, but they never made him too smart. I always felt like he was a little bit behind Hans, because there's ways he could have gone with the radio chatter, especially with the other cop. They could have used like cop lingo and used like code to try to communicate. And like, oh, we can also be smart. But I understand what they were trying to play, like with the duality stuff.
Correct. You know, correct. Like you said, like John didn't act smart, but he was smart. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like he wasn't like what's the main character's name from 24? Jack. He wasn't Jack Bowering it up.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he just kind of instinctually knew what to do next, you know, like how to handle the situation.
It was more
And
like street
Hans-
smart.
Right, exactly. Like he's been a cop for long enough to kind of get a good read on these people, you know, and how to handle the situation from within and quietly, so that I don't think there was any real loss of hostages outside of the boss and that one talker, right? I don't think
No,
any
none of the other
hostages.
hostages were killed.
And that's a testament to John all by himself. You know what I mean? Because, you know, one wrong move and, you know, the hostages could have really been taken out.
Mm-hmm.
But there are some really cool scenes in this film. Like you mentioned earlier, the tank scene where these guys literally had missile launchers ready to go, you know, to take out the tank. And then John happened to make that makeshift bomb out of an office chair.
Yeah, that's
and
one of the
some C4.
three iconic scenes of this movie. You have the tank, the chair scene, and then the helicopter scene at the end.
Yes, where he uses the fire extinguisher to wrap around his waist
Mm-hmm.
and kind of just jump. And that iconic. And it's funny, like I you know those scenes because you know them just out of periphery, like
Mhm.
they're just part of popular culture. But seeing them in the flow of the film is really, really interesting. Like ho ho ho, I now have a machine gun.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I didn't realize that was so early in the film.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
that's very early on. I think that's after he gets the first dude down. And he's like, oh, this is useful.
I've got yeah, it's like, you know, he got a power up, you know,
Mhm.
and the weird moments where, you know, like the sleazy news reporter literally goes to John's house, you know, and threatens the maid with immigration services.
Mhm.
It's like so outdated stuff, you know, like that's not cool. And just kind of these external issues that aren't really slowing John down, but they're just complicating the situation for everyone outside of the building. They're not necessarily affecting anyone inside.
It's adding external drama, and also kind of start like as you notice as the movie gets further towards the end goal, like this stuff starts popping up more. Like at the midpoints when the van arrives, and they're like, "Oh, we can't really get in here. And then they figure out the name after they run the badge and all that stuff. And like, "Oh, he has a wife here. Let's go to that house." And that happens right after the fast talker dudes get shot.
Right. Yeah, it's like these weird. It's like towards the end of the film, they didn't have enough to pad it kind of. So they had to add these stakes that weren't necessarily high, but they just added more. They needed things to kind of go. Like Hans needed to figure out that his wife, who has been kind of hiding in plain sight, was connected to him, because throughout the whole film, she's been claiming her maiden name and not her marriage name. And Hans kind of didn't catch that oversight, that, oh, this is his wife, until the very end, like you were mentioning, where just all of a sudden, John's kids are on TV. You know what I mean? And Hans gets the idea, like, okay, she needs to come along with us for the last part of the film to actually come to fruition. You know what I mean? Or the moment where the cops kind of spill that his name is John McClane. You know what I mean? It's just like these funny external issues that just add flavor to the movie rather than actually adjust the stakes for anyone inside the building outside of the last 5 minutes of the movie. You know what I mean? What other scene I liked was the scene where Hans was faking like he was a hostage.
I was just about to bring that up. I was gonna say that was like one of my favorite scenes in the movie, because like it really goes to the testament like how Alan Rickman is as an actor and how good he can be when he goes like, change his voice on kind of command there, as he was talking with like, I think he's kind of like a New Jersey accent, I believe, at that point. And then he quickly adapts back to the German one he was using when Jean catches on, like, wait a minute.
Right. And it's just so smooth. It's like John legit gets the drop on him. Right. And in a split second, he just starts cowering and speaking with a weird kind of Texan jaw. You know what I mean? It's like, wait, what? And I totally forgot about that part. And they're just kind of, and John is being just so sincere with them. Like, yeah, man, I'm a New York cop. I'm caught in this situation. You want a gun? Here's a gun. We're going to have to survive this together. And you can see the facial expressions on Alan Rickman, like moments of confusion. You know what I mean? Like, it's really well played, well acted on Alan's part. And that whole scene kind of just made the movie for me. I think that's probably my favorite part.
There's parts where I feel like Alan Rickman actually outacts Bruce Willis a couple times, but that's just the difference, because Alan Rickman was actually classically trained. He actually did Shakespearean stuff. There's actually stuff you can find when reading Shakespearean sonnets and stuff. He actually does a really good job. And then you have Bruce Willis, who I don't think he was ever classically trained, but he's still a pretty good actor. But you can definitely see there's a difference between levels of acting.
Yes, I think it's like you said, one is book smarts and one kind of feels like street smarts. In a way, like Bruce Willis has this swagger about him. He has kind of this nonchalant, honestly, I wouldn't be able to tell the difference between the cop here in Die Hard and the cop in The Last Boy Scout. You know what I mean? They had a similar kind of dry wit to them that just makes them visually captivating. You know what I mean? Bruce Willis just has that movie star, I would say, spark about him, where you can see Alan Rickman's really working, like he's working hard to pull off his scenes, especially his introduction, where he's kind of pontificating to the crowd and how, just kind of, I would say, comparing Nakatomi Plaza to some weird ancient like civilization that's gotten too big for his britches. It's like what is happening?
I think another good thing to look at is like Bruce Willis kind of had a character he played. Most of his characters were very similar in feel or writing. They just kind of it's hard to not compare John McClane to the cop in Last Boy Scout or any of the really actiony movies that he's done. They all kind of blend together. They're all very similar. There are some differences, like Hudson Hawk. That one's much more towards like the humor that Bruce can really bring about. Like he can be very like charming, sarcastically, and he can play off each other very well. He gets like almost instant chemistry of anybody you put him on screen with. Like he adapts very well to them.
Right, and I call it George Clooneying it. Where certain actors, they just play themselves, like if you hire Tracy Morgan, he's just going to Tracy Morgan it up. There's no other range. Adam Sandler. You hire Adam Sandler. there's very few movies that Adam Sandler actually emotes. You know what I mean?
Everything
like
he
Punch
did in the
Drunk Love.
90s was basically the same character.
Right. Absolutely. And he kind of fell into this weird funk where he was either doing completely toned drama or something completely wacky.
Yeah, Little Nicky, Happy Gilmore, all that.
And especially all his Netflix things and horrible. But enough about Adam Sandler. We'll do 8 Crazy Nights next year.
Or Click. Click would be great. That's actually one of his really good movies.
Yeah, he actually acts in Click.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Okay, like when you talk about Will Ferrell and then talk about Elf or Stranger Than Fiction.
Oh, right. I haven't seen that. I have to see that.
Stranger Than Fiction is actually an amazing movie. I highly recommend it.
Cool. I'm going to have to check that out. But for this film, with all its action and, with all the kind of funny storytelling it does, like I was mentioning earlier, I can really see how and why this just holds dear to so many people, because it's a very simple film, but it's also very layered in its external issues that kind of lock you in with John McClane, and you're feeling every bump, you know what I mean? And you're feeling every cut and crack that this man goes through to save the day, and he actually pulls it off without dying. And I think that's a really, really cool ending to this film. And let's talk about the actual ending.
Where he gets the ultimate drop.
I love the history behind that drop, because apparently when they were filming it, Alan Rickman didn't know when they were going to drop him. And it was kind of like they told him, we're going to count to 5. And on 5, brace yourself and you're going to drop. But the director dropped him at like 2. And so that look on his face when he's falling at the very end of the film, where John McClane tapes the gun to his back and gets the drop on him. That's a look of true fear. Because everything was practical. And one thing that really was cool to me is that they have this outside shot of Hans going from pretty much from where he fell to the floor, and it looked real. It looked legit real, like that was some stunt guy, because it wasn't CG. It couldn't have been CG.
Not in the time period. This was very obvious CG. Very obvious CG.
It would have been like the end of RoboCop levels bad. You know what I mean? Like where Dick Jones has the super long Wendigo arms.
Oh god.
But I love it. But yeah, I was surprisingly realistic how that ending was. And how Hans got his break. Because the only thing I remember from that part is Die Hard with a Vengeance, where it does the quick flashback to John remembering. He's like, oh yeah, this is Hans Gruber's brother. And they show it. I'm like, oh man, that looks so crazy. But yeah, I think this is an excellent film for its time, mind you, for its time. And I can see how some people will pop this on around this time of year, because it's not very heavily Christmassy, but like the score of the movie is playing like Christmas music in it, but in a very dark tone. I noticed that it's playing like I think Ave Maria, it's playing something that's very New Year's-y, Christmassy, but they drop it all the way low, and it makes it sound oppressive, like when something bad's gonna happen. They're playing this weird music.
There's definitely a lot of fun musical stuff in here. I wish they would have played with it as much as they did like with stuff in Hudson Hawk, where they were singing together or at each other while they were going about their missions, or like the scene where they're exploding the castle and they're just going like through a little singing moment.
Yeah, something a little fun, But I think this movie does have a very deft hand with its wackiness, because there are some flat out wacky things that happened in this movie. You know,
the catchphrase.
The catchphrase is John just not, given the severity of the situation, John is just not taking anything seriously. Like he's so like he has like a tonal dissonance for everything. And I just think it's super kind of nutty how just so comfortable he is in this situation. You know what I mean? Even when he's pulling glass out of his feet, he's cracking jokes. It's just kind of interesting, their take on that. But I do I do applaud this movie because its villains, like you were mentioning earlier, are quite smart and would have gotten away with it if it wasn't for, these darn kids and their dog. You know what I mean?
Condensed into one angry man.
Right. One man with a purpose, right?
Mm-hmm.
Cool. Did you have any other thoughts of this film before we give it our final grade?
There are some points I really liked. One of my favorite palate cleanser humor moments is when John's trying to figure out how to get backup, and he calls in the first cop that we see in the movie. And then he's like, how do I get him to know there's stuff going on in here? He's about to leave. He starts slamming his chair against the window, and then these dudes break in, and there's a quick gunfight. And the dude's like, if you go and kill somebody, kill somebody. He's like, oh, thanks for the advice. And this guns the dude down, and then the dude's about to leave, and he just throws the dude's body out the window, and he lands right in front of the dude's car.
Welcome to the party, pal.
Yeah.
That's another scene I remembered out of context. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of nutty. Like these moments in this film, I completely forgot, and it's just in sync with the movie. It's just like, oh, that makes perfect sense. This movie has so much style. It has way more style than it deserves to have. I think that's why, it had so many sequels, and why it made Bruce Willis a household name. You know what I mean?
I don't know as much of this or Sixth Sense really is the one that cemented to Bruce Willis.
I think Bruce Willis had kind of like a John Travolta kind of situation where he was hot for a very long time and then cooled down. And then he had his like 2000s, 90s comeback. You know what I mean? Kind of like
he had
Sixth Sense.
the two Die Hard movies like in the mid 2000s, and he had a kind of resurgences.
Right. Kind of like how John Travolta was dead in the water, nobody would hire him. And then Pulp Fiction happened and just jump-started his career right back up. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. And then he did a movie like in 2012, 11, Old Dogs.
Mm-hmm. Right. Right.
That was actually a really funny movie.
Yeah, I don't remember how it did though. Were people really digging that movie? I don't remember.
It was very popular. It was very funny. It was him playing off really well. I think it was it Robin Williams in there with him? I don't
Old
remember.
Dogs, was that the
kind of
movie?
hard.
Was that the movie directed by Kevin Smith?
No. It was with John Travolta, and Seth Green was in it. He was kind of like the intern, and he was doing the small jobs for him. I think it was Robin Williams or someone else of that kind of comedic nature. It was either him, like Jim Carrey, or someone of that like higher comedic totem pole.
I'm gonna have to check that out then, because maybe I'm misremembering
Let me look
something.
this up real quick because it is bothering me.
No worries. I will take this time to actually give this movie a score. From 0 being absolute trash to 5 being godlike, next level of the Nerdverse. I think this movie sits at a nice 4 with me. After watching it again, after all these years, I really enjoyed it. It seems there could have been the script could have been a little bit tighter, but some of the external stuff kind of happening towards the end of the movie. But I left it grinning, and it kind of gave me that happy little Christmas feel. And like I was mentioning earlier, I can see why people put this on their list as one of their favorite unconventional Christmas movies of all time. Absolutely.
All right, done. So yeah, it was Robin Williams.
Cool. You said this was called
Old
Dogs?
Dogs. It was actually a Disney movie.
Interesting. Chimpanzee that. What would you rate this movie?
I'm actually going to give this a unpopular score. I'm going to say like a 3.5, mainly for two reasons. One, after watching it again, I don't really feel like I need to watch again for a while. There's things I saw that later movies did better, like Die Hard 2 just did some things better. It was a bit better filmed. There's a little bit better jokes here and there. Or Hudson Hawk, which is just a lot funnier, and it has some really good action scenes, like, the whole singing, blowing up the castle one. So I feel like I'm a little more skewed towards I saw some better Bruce Willis action movies, and then going back and watching Die Hard, the original one, I'm like, I saw this stuff, but better later on.
Right, right, right. And that's kind of where I kind of gave it a more favorable score because there are some Bruce Willis gems that I just absolutely love. But I kind of wanted to put this movie in a time capsule, in a little time bubble, and kind of just base it on its soul merits. And I wasn't never bored. But this movie has very good pacing, I think, like we were mentioning earlier, with the poignant moments, with the comic relief moments, and then right back into the action. It kept me glued the entire time. So I will give it that. Like I was mentioning,
if I was to put it in a time capsule, I would definitely look a little bit more on it. But yeah, as an action movie, I would definitely say it's a 4. As a movie that's trying to be Christmas, definitely more like a 3. It very little invokes any Christmassy thematics besides some things here and there.
Yeah, Christmas is on the periphery of this film. It's not necessarily the main course. It's kind of the appetizer, so to speak, just floating around this siege heist movie, as it were.
This so happens to happen at Christmas.
Correct. Which is why I love it as an unconventional Christmas movie. You know, kind of like a Gremlins. Or my favorite one of my favorite unconventional Christmas movies is Lethal Weapon, because you know there's a gunfight at a Christmas tree selling place. The movie opens up with like jingle bells and a woman like falling out of a wind out of a like a high rise. It's a super nutty movie, but it just definitely has like a very strong Christmas feel. Or this movie Die Hard has more of like an aftertaste. If they're at a Christmas party, you know what I mean? It's LA, so it's not snowing or anything, but you know, it's just kind of, you know, by the end of the movie, Christmas doesn't matter.
Yeah. Like, oh yeah, it happened at Christmas. I don't remember that. There was a lot of shit going on.
Right. That was a real wild Christmas, man. Ah, man. Cool. So a 3.5 from Brent and a 4.0 from Mike Jeezy. So where can we find you, Brent?
Well, you can find me on Twitter at King of Myths. And I did a quick little thing on a podcast on Nerds on the Round Table, but that kind of went defunct. But we do have 4 videos out, so if you're interested in hearing things about nerd culture and having some interesting opinions on what to be and not to be as a DM, I have some stuff on YouTube.
Find them on YouTube, ladies and gentlemen. Get those DM strats for your upcoming campaigns. And if you like MOTM reviews, you can always leave us a like. If you like it. And that can be on iTunes, YouTube, Spotify, however you may find this podcast. You can always comment, give us your 2 cents, or $18 on the movie Die Hard. Did you love it? Did you hate it? Did we miss anything? Is there an unconventional movie that you wish we would have done for the holiday season? And you can always subscribe to this channel, which is Masters of the Nerdiverse, for more information and upcoming episodes that I'm very excited for to close out this year. I want to thank you once again, Brent, for being a guest on the show.
Well, thanks for having me. And it'd be cool to see what maybe their recommendations for maybe unpopular or unconventional Christmas movies we might have missed.
Right. Me too. Because I know there's got to be some out there other than the 4 I put on the poll. So I'm kind of curious to see what people's polls are. You know, unconventional, mind you. So Christmas can't be in the name.
A little too on the nose.
Too on the nose. Thank you for listening. I've, of course, been your host, Mike G. And I will always ask you to look towards the skies. Look towards the skies.